Hey guys, it is me, and as promised, I'm going to do a quick video about advertising. I'm going to take my book, High Point, and I'm going to show you how I might go ahead and actually advertise it. There are lots of different ways you can advertise your self-published book, and to a large extent, it depends on what your objectives are. A lot of authors like to launch their book and hit it really hard and see if they can get it ranked in the top 100, in which case you get a lot of organic sales. Other authors prefer the sort of slow burn thing where you have adverts that are running all the time, and what you do is you just make sure that you are spending less on advertising than you are getting back in book sales. That's a trick, and that is getting more and more difficult to do. But depending on what your objectives are, you have a variety of different platforms to advertise on. I'm going to make this video about advertising on Amazon because as a self-published author, your book is available on Amazon. Amazon offer the opportunity to advertise your book, so it seems like a really logical place to start. Objective-wise, you can definitely use advertising on Amazon when you launch a book and hit it really hard and stuff like that. But for me, the goal has always been that kind of slow burn thing. Amazon is not where you go to make a bunch of quick sales really quickly. It's where you go to kind of filter your book into the Amazon ecosystem, get a constant amount of sales, slowly building up your presence and getting your little tentacles into the infrastructure of Amazon. And the goal, of course, is to be spending less on advertising than you are getting back in royalties. How do you even start with that? Well, you should probably start right here on the homepage of Amazon. And let me explain very briefly how advertising on Amazon works. There are a variety of different approaches you can take, but most authors stick with what I'm familiar with, which is a campaign called sponsored keywords. Amazon is a search engine like Google, and their way of advertising with sponsored keywords is a lot like Google AdWords, if you're familiar with that. Google AdWords is a very, very effective and quite cost-effective way of advertising, but the problem is it has a very steep learning curve, and Amazon advertising is exactly the same. I would say the learning curve is perhaps even steeper. So as an author, you have your product, first of all, so let's take my book, High Point, and what you want to do is get people who might be interested in reading this book to wind up on your product page. How do you do that? Well, you do that through keywords. Keywords are things that people search for. So you can see from the look of my book and everything like that, that I was very much inspired by Clive Kessler, who wrote these amazing sea adventures when I wrote this. So let's use Clive Kessler as an example. Let's type in Clive Kessler and see what comes up. Well, the first thing you need to think of is, and let me reiterate this because it's quite important, when you arrive on the Amazon homepage, you can actually click down and go to all of these different departments, and you have departments just like Walmart has departments. The thing to remember is 99.9% of people never bother clicking on this, so they will type in whatever it is they want to look for, and we're looking for Clive Kessler here. The thing to remember with that is books, ebooks especially, are a very low margin item. So if you have an ebook, I market mine at $3.99, you get 70% royalties. That means you get about $3 in book royalties for every book that you sell, which means you have about $3 with which to make a sale before you're losing money. The problem is when you go up against anybody searching in the general Amazon homepage, you go up against not just other authors, but you go up against every single product available there. And this is where advertising on Amazon can get very, very expensive, and you can lose a lot of money very quickly, because remember, you are going up against people who might be bidding for the same keywords you are, except selling much higher margin items. So for example, Clive Kessler, for me, he's an author, but also he's connected to a bunch of movies. There was Sahara with what's his name, Matthew McConaughey. Love Matthew McConaughey. But if you were going to buy the DVD box set of Sahara, that might be $18 and 70% royalties or whatever. You can imagine that whoever is selling that is getting like $10 worth of royalties, which means they can already bid 3 times what I can and still make a profit. So something to be aware of. But let's look at Clive Kessler. You type in Clive Kessler, all of these suggestions drop down. Clive Kessler new releases 2020 in Kindle store and books, Clive Kessler books, Clive Kessler. These are all useful when you are trying to get keywords, but we will just hit enter and see what comes up using the keyword Clive Kessler. Now, What Amazon have done that is really, really clever is over the course of the first 10 years of the company, a little more than a decade actually, they didn't have advertising on their website at all. And so they built this incredible relationship with customers where you think everything that you get served up by the search engine is an organic result and is relevant to you as a customer based on your buying behavior. And then in, I think it was 2016, 2017, they brought in this whole thing of advertising on Amazon, usurped that trust. And now you will get adverts filtered into whatever you're looking for on Amazon, and you've been trained over the course of a decade to think that they're organic search results, they are relevant to you, and it makes you much more likely to click through to them. It's very sneaky. Well, let's look at the search results here. The first one that you've got at the top here is for a series of books by L.T. Ryan. These are adverts, you can tell, because you've got the little sponsored bit here. This is what tells you what is an advert and what isn't an advert. So L.T. Ryan here, very, very prolific author who spends a vast amount on advertising, is clearly using Clive Kessler as a sponsored keyword, and that's why his books appear. The first result that comes up is deceptive, because even though it is a Clive Kessler box set, DVD box set actually, it is sponsored. It's an advert. So Clive Kessler Sea Hunters, which is a 2 DVD box set available for $14.95. This is an advert that's got served up, so you might click on that, and it's probably not what you're looking for. The first organic search result that comes up is this, which is Clive Kessler's latest book. Sadly, I believe it's his last book because we lost him in February of this year. And then you've got Final Option, you've got Fast Ice, you've got Celtic Empire, Wrath of Poseidon, and all of the books that you would expect to be served up organically. But as you scroll through these, you think, oh, look, okay, we've scrolled down half the page. These ones that aren't by Clive Kessler, they're probably relevant to the search results. No, these are all adverts as well. And as I said, this is where Amazon gets really sneaky, because they give you lots of delicious organic search results, and then they'll slip in these adverts very sneakily. And Robert B. Williams here, Garrett Drake, and Ernest Dempsey are paying to, well, they're bidding to have their adverts served for the keyword Clive Kessler. They've got covers that match really, really well with Clive Kessler's aesthetic. So this is a very effective place to have your advert there. You scroll down and you can see more and more adverts here. We've got Wallace and Keith, we've got C.G. Cooper, we've got C.G. Cooper here again. These are all adverts too. You can always tell by the little sponsored post. So as a consumer, it's not so great to have adverts sort of sneakily inserted, but as an author, it's great. If you were able to spend money to have your book featured among Clive Kessler's books, that's wonderful. And it's not the only place that keywords and advertising actually exists on Amazon. We're not going to click on this one. This is Clive Kessler Sea Hunter, the DVD box set, the sponsored post. If I click on this, then whoever is advertising this has to pay for that click. And I'll get into what that means a little later. So we'll go on to this, the first organic search result, click through. And this is the product page for Marauder, which is the 15th book in the Oregon Files series. And you can see some other places where advertising exists. Like, you scroll down, books you may like. This is a useless section that they've added that replaced one of the most beautiful organic search ribbons ever. But then you've got products related to this item. These are all adverts, and that's fairly obvious because you can see that Ernest Dempsey is back here, C.G. Cooper is back here. You'll start to see some familiar names who are always bidding on Clive Kessler as a keyword. So once you use Clive Kessler as a keyword, your book can appear in the search results depending on what you're bidding, or it can appear here in the product related to this item ribbon. If you scroll down, there's another product related to this item ribbon down here. If you scroll up, you can also see there's an advert here. There are adverts all over the place, basically. But what Amazon have done that is really, really clever is this ribbon, products related to this item, this sort of sales pitch here, replaced what used to be here for years, which was, and you can sometimes find it right down at the bottom, customers who viewed this item also viewed, and this is called the also bought section. These are all organic results. People who bought The Wrath of Poseidon also looked at this book. People who bought Final Option also looked at this book. So these used to be really, really good, relevant ways of finding reading material that was related to whatever book you're looking at. And Amazon basically just swapped that for these adverts here, so people still click on them thinking they're relevant to them organically based on the algorithm, but actually they're just adverts. But hey, as an author, this is fantastic. You can get your book featured here as well. But how? Well, let me explain how advertising on Amazon works. You have a keyword like Clive Kessler, and you make what is called a bid. You say, I am willing to gamble, let's say 50 cents, to have my book appear as an advert when anybody searches for Clive Kessler. And if my advert appears and somebody clicks on it and it goes through to my product page, this page here, I will pay 50 cents or up to the nearest bid related to that. So you can see it's almost like playing blackjack, where you're making a gamble, and you have to think, okay, if I'm paying 50 cents per click, how many clicks will it take before somebody buys my book? And then is that actually going to help me make a profit? And so I spoke earlier about how if you're selling a book at $3.99, you're getting about $3 worth of royalties per every full price sale, which means you have 6 clicks before you are losing money. And that's quite a tight margin. And so it's something that you have to be really, really strategic and think really, really hard about. If you scroll down here to the products related item, I use the example of 50 cents, but what actually happens is all of these authors and hundreds more, there are 116 pages of results here, all decided to bid for the keyword Clive Kessler. And what Amazon does is it looks at who's bidding the highest for that particular keyword, and then it looks who's most likely to make a sale, combines those two, and those are the 6 books that it decides to put on the first page of this product related to this item ribbon. So if you are bidding 50 cents per click, and all of these people are bidding 60 cents per click, you might find your book here on page 2, which isn't great. Nobody ever goes to the second page if you've ever used Google AdWords. So like playing blackjack, you have to gamble with as high a bid as you can, but at the same time knowing that you've only got, at 50 cents, you've only got 6 clicks before you're losing money. So there's this very, very careful balance between bidding as high as you can to make sure your book appears in front of potential customers, but at the same time you want to bid as low as you can because you want to make sure that you are saving as much money as possible on all those clicks, so you're actually making a profit. How do you do that? I'll get into the tactics for that, and I have some suggestions that might help. But the other thing to think about, and this is something that authors don't think about but is very, very important, is you have to remember that you can only have your advert served when somebody is using Clive Kessler as a keyword or going to the product page of a Clive Kessler book. If they're not doing that, then Clive Kessler is not a keyword that will have your advert served, which means you have to pick things that people are actually looking for on Amazon. You'd be surprised how few people are actually looking for any particular thing at any particular time. There are 45 million books available on Amazon. So Clive Kessler, one of the most famous authors in America, if you scroll down, let's say, yeah, his book is 1,500 in books. So it is a pretty highly ranked book, but it's still a book that you are not having thousands upon thousands of people searching for each and every day. The advantage of bidding for Clive Kessler is he's written so many books, and you've got sort of numbers to your advantage in terms of getting your book featured here. But you have to understand that if you are bidding even a high amount on a keyword that isn't being searched that many times per day, you're limiting the amount of people who could potentially see your advert. It doesn't matter how much you are bidding to have your advert served. So what do you do? And it seems like a really difficult situation to be in. But there is one solution to all of your problems, and that is to cast as wide a net as possible. and have as many keywords as possible in your advertising campaign. In that way, you're just playing a numbers game. If you have 1,000 keywords and each of them is being searched 10 times per day, that means you have 10,000 opportunities to have your book featured on a product page or in a search result. Whereas if you are bidding on one particular keyword, Clive Kessler, and 10,000 people are looking for Clive Kessler books every single day, you will only appear where your book is the most relevant, your book has the highest bid, and so you're limiting yourself. So you want to have as many keywords as possible. You can't just limit yourself to just one. How do you even go around getting keywords? Well, let me show you. So here's my book, High Point, Clive Kessler, obvious choice for a keyword. So when I decide to do an advertising campaign, what I will do is I will get my little notepad, completely blank, and I'll start putting in keywords like Clive Kessler. What else could I put in? Well, this was also written by Boyd Morrison. He could be used as a keyword. Then what you can do is get the ASIN of this book, which is the identification number. Well, actually, let's go to the Kindle version. Amazon's Kindle version has something called an ASIN. This is the code that Amazon uses to identify the book. Obviously, no one is searching for B082H2Q6QY, but what this serves as a keyword for is anybody who goes to this product page for this particular book. That gives you the opportunity to tell Amazon that you want your ad to appear on this page. You can then, let's say, go to the paperback of the book, and that will have an ISBN number. You're probably familiar with those if you go to the library. You can use that as a keyword. And again, if someone's looking at the paperback version of this book, your advert might appear here. What else can you do when you're searching things? Well, Clive Kessler didn't just write one book. He wrote many books. The Oregon Files, for example, is a book series with 15 books in. So you could use that as a keyword. Anytime someone's searching for the Oregon Files, or anytime you're on a product page of a book in the Oregon Files, you will now have your advert potentially appearing there. Go through to Clive Kessler's page and look at all these books that he's got. You can take the title for every single one and use that as a potential keyword. Let's see, so final option there, Wrath of Poseidon here. What else could you do? You can also use the series name. So a Sam and Remy Fargo adventure. That's great. You can have Sam and Remy Fargo adventure. You could have Sam and Remy Fargo. What you have to do basically is spend hours going through and finding every single potentially useful keyword you can and making a list of them. Robin Bursell, who helped write Wrath of Poseidon. Graham Brown, who helped write Journey of the Pharaohs. Bonk. You could also have, let's see, the Numa Files. Clive Kessler started this great organization called Numa, which goes around trying to find historical wrecks and recover them. And it's funny, that's a life imitating art, because he sort of created that in his books first and then used the profits of his books to be able to do it in real life. But Isaac Bell adventure, you could put Isaac Bell as a keyword, and what you want to do is go through and collect as many keywords as possible. And you don't want to do it just for Clive Kessler. So what sort of books do Clive Kessler fans like? Well, some of them might be obvious to you already. So I know for a fact that a lot of Clive Kessler fans love Tom Clancy. So let's look at Tom Clancy. It's quite interesting. LT Ryan, there he is again. He's obviously on the same track as me. He knows that Clive Kessler fans love Tom Clancy, so he's using Tom Clancy as a keyword as well. First result isn't an organic search result. Bradley Wright is bidding for Tom Clancy as a keyword. Then you've got another sponsored result, Tim Ramsey here. You probably recognize this book cover from the product page of Marauder. So he's clearly using Clive Kessler and Tom Clancy as keywords. And the thing that I always find ironic is you don't actually get the first organic search result until you scroll down below the fold. But here, you've got Tom Clancy you can use as a keyword, obviously. Tom Clancy. You could use Jack Ryan, his most famous creation. You could use Shadow of the Dragon, the name of his book. You could do Jack Ryan novel. All of these things. It takes a long, long time. But this is how you collect keywords for your advertising on Amazon campaign. And you want as many keywords as possible. Each ad group that you're going to create, and I'll show you that in a little while, can have up to 1,000 keywords on there, and you want to take full advantage of that. The more keywords you have, the more opportunity you have to have your advert show up in a search result. And in addition, the more keywords you have, the lower you can make your bid, which means the more profit you can potentially make because you're playing a numbers game. Right. Where else can you find keywords? Let's go back to Clive Kessler and let's go back to Marauder. I complained earlier about how this ribbon of stuff, the products related to this item, all of these adverts replaced something called the also bought section. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll often find the also bought section of the books. This is incredibly useful when you were trying to get keywords and put together an advertising campaign on Amazon, because these are organic results. And these tell you what books people who bought this book also bought. That's what's called the also bought section. And the great thing there is this isn't generated through advertising. This is generated by customers liking a particular type of book, and it gives you a vast amount of information. So I said earlier that Tom Clancy and Clive Kessler shared a lot of readership. You can see customers who bought this book, Marauder by Clive Kessler, also bought Shadow of the Dragon by Tom Clancy. They also bought David Baldacci books. David Baldacci is a very, very popular thriller author. So you can start putting those books, those names, and those book series in there. And what you can do is go through. There are 13 pages of also bought sections here. You can go through and take all of the authors' names, all of the book series names, all of the co-authors. You can take all of the ASINs. You can take all of the ISBNs. You can take every single potential keyword here and put it into your list of keywords, and that is really going to help you out. The problem is you're going to have to do it manually. Now, there are products like Publisher Rocket which claim to be able to do this for you, and I've had inconsistent success with Publisher Rocket. It is very useful at doing certain things, but it is at the end of the day a product. It doesn't have a brain attached to it, and brains are very, very important when it comes to advertising on Amazon, because you have to think like a reader. One of the reasons when I published this book, I designed this cover this way with a boat and these guys shooting at it and the big bright lettering and stuff, is I wanted to mimic the style of Clive Kessler covers, which always have a boat and action and explosions, big lettering. And when you are going through, you can use a product like Publisher Rocket to sort of go through and scrape certain bits of information from like the also bought section and stuff like that. But sometimes that isn't great, because the results that it comes up with are literally just scraped from this data here, and they don't have any context to it. So if you look at something like John Grisham, A Time for Mercy, this is a legal thriller, which I wouldn't necessarily not include it, because I do think the more keywords the better. You never quite know what is going to be good or not. But this book isn't such a relevant a keyword to use compared to, say, The Grey Ghost by Clive Kessler, or Janet Vanovich, brilliant thriller author, but again, her books to me don't automatically think that they're going to be a fantastic link to the books of Clive Kessler or my book. Same with Stuart Woods. So the opportunity that you get by doing this by hand rather than using a tool like Publisher Rocket is you get to pick and choose what you think is going to be a good match. And this is very, very important for a number of reasons. They always say don't judge a book by its cover, but of course on Amazon all you get is a snapshot of its cover. So when you think about your book potentially being included in any of the adverts, like for example this ribbon of products related to this item, what you want to do is make sure that your book looks appropriate here. So we've got my book here. My book, I think, would look appropriate among a ribbon of sort of Tom Clancy or Clive Kessler books, but next to like The Vatican's Last Secret, with they very cleverly wiped out the swastika here because you can't have swastikas on Amazon books, it wouldn't necessarily look so good. So you get to use some what is called executive function in choosing which books you want to chase as keywords, which books you don't want to chase in keywords, which you can't do if you just scrape something. There is no easy corner cutting way to do this. It involves sitting down for hours, going through, looking at books, pulling keywords, pulling ASINs, pulling things like that. I have a few tricks and tips that I use to do this. I use Excel quite a lot, and I'll like scrape entire amounts from various ribbons, and then I'll use certain algorithms to pull out certain elements based on the way that Amazon present them. I won't bore you with all that now, but at the end of the day, it is still a really time-consuming process to come up with keywords. Let's say you have 1,000 keywords. What do you do with those keywords then? Well, this is where advertising on Amazon comes in. So you have your book. You now have your list of keywords. Let's pretend we have 1,000 keywords. I'm going to stop later and actually grab 1,000 keywords. And you now want to run a campaign where your book could potentially appear in front of potential buyers. Let me show you how to do that. First thing I'm going to do is actually exactly what I said. I'm going to go through and I'm going to get tons and tons of keywords. Literally 1,000 of them to start off with. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do with those keywords.